Okay, all the oil samples look clear, so it's time to do this cam belt. Particularly given the way the auxiliary belt broke the other day. I really don't want to trust this cam belt any longer. So a bit of history and background to the Ferrari Mondial T. It was actually a bit of a first for Ferrari. It was the first Ferrari V8 to have a longitudinal engine, something that would become the DNA of all future Ferrari V8s. It was the first Ferrari to have power steering, electrically adjustable suspension, and ABS. The engine would go on to be used in the 348, so this video may be of use to 348 owners as well. The chassis would also then go on to be used to underpin all future Ferraris right up until the Ferrari 360. In addition, this Mondial T was one of about 25 or 30 cars that were fitted with the Vallejo electronically operated clutch system. Now that's something that went on to become the F1 system used in virtually all Ferraris later on, and also in Maseratis. Another thing that the Mondial T introduced to us with that longitudinal engine was the requirement to take the engine out to do a cam belt service. Now this is not quite as bad as it sounds because Ferrari designed this entire lump to be easy to remove. It's on its own special subframe complete with suspension and wheels, and it's just a few bolts and the entire assembly can be dropped down and wheeled away. The problem is it still adds a good 2, 3, 4 hours to your average cam belt service. And if you're paying 2 or 3 or 4 hours additional in a Ferrari dealership, it's going to get expensive. Added to this is the unfortunate concept that for some reason Ferrari decided that cam belt services should be done every 3 years or so, which was just really unnecessary and really unhelpful. The obvious wisdom nowadays is that it's more like 6 to 8 years between cam belt services, or obviously mileage dependent as well. Now this whole changing the cam belt issue is a bit of a problem for me right now because my cam belt's something like 32 years old and I want this car properly back on the road with an MOT. So how am I going to get round it? Well, I don't have a fancy lift, I don't have fancy facilities, I just have that little garage down there. So I'm going to have to come up with a different way. Fortunately, after looking on the Ferrari chat forum, I found out there is a way to actually change this cam belt without removing the engine from the car. Now I hasten to add that I think it's always best probably to take the engine out because it gives you access to lots of other stuff. If you've got the facilities to do it, that's the best way to go. But for someone like me who's prepared to put up with a little bit of pain, a little bit of difficulty, this is going to work out the much better option. So what I've got to try and do is I've got to try and figure out how to get this car up in the air so I can get the fuel tank out and do the cam belt in this very, very titchy, tight, narrow garage. So I've marked up where the wheels go and where the ramps are going to have to go, because I'm going to use little jury rig ramps on the front to start the process of getting her in the air. Here's where the rear wheels go, and this is all based off of where the fuel tank is, and the fuel tank's about from here to here, so I've marked that up with this blue masking tape because my idea is once I get her up in the air I should be able to drop the fuel tank down and then take it out the side door here and get it out the way. It's a bit like Tetris or something like that, isn't it? One of those slot games you had when you were a kid. Not the easiest place to get into. Now if you want to see what a traditional engine out timing belt change looks like on a Mondial T, go check out Liam van der Riel's exquisite video. He used stop motion photography. It's like Wallace and Gromit. It was really cool. Now what I've done here is I've just lifted the end of these ramps up and got my boy to shove bricks underneath them. And that lifted the front of the car up enough that it was easier to then get the jack underneath and jack her up the rest of the way. Right, so what I've done is I've jacked up the fronts off of the ramps and I'm just setting these axle stands. If it was to fail now, it wouldn't crush me that much. I reckon that's pretty good for jacking. The front is up nice and high. It's all nice and flat. It's well and truly secure. Yeah, I reckon that's a pretty good place to be in. Right, I can't quite see. I don't know if the camera's pointing in the right angle. But this is now my scene of work. So I've got to get the fuel tank out of here, which should be fairly straightforward. I'll find out soon, because I'm going to start unbolting it soon. I think I'm right in saying, where's my tape measure gone? I think I'm right in saying that this fuel tank looks like that's the highest point of it. So the fuel tank looks like it's about 32 centimeters tall, which is about 13 inches or so. I have a height here now of 14 inches, or about 36 centimeters. So I should have about 3 or 4 centimeters spare. So that should be enough height for me to now drop this thing out. Yeah, this adds a couple of centimeters. So I should have enough height that I can drop this thing out and either slide it that way or slide it out the door there. Well, I know I should have probably have got this all on camera, but there is the fuel tank. It was a pig in the end. These quick disconnect fittings aren't too bad. They came apart relatively easy, you know, just twist them a few times and then you clench here and they come apart. Only problem is, I didn't realise there was one down that corner. So that got broken, so I'm going to have to figure out some repair for that. Underneath here is now a whole ton of space, which means I should have pretty good access up to the cam belts up there. It's all started, and like normal, there's always one. This bolt here is jammed and I can't undo it. I had to drill one out ages ago on the other cam cover to try and check the cam belt before I ran her on the road, and this cam cover's done exactly the same and got one stuck. I can't really get to it from above. I've tried using mole grips to grip this to undo it and it just keeps on slipping. So I'm going to get my drill and I'm going to drill with my right angle drill into the end of the bolt here. I need this because otherwise I'm going to mess up, get metal dust in my eyes, which would not be funny. This is actually a really sort of cheap attachment that you can get for a drill, and it's just really useful. I've worked in worse places. SRN4 hovercraft, that used to be strange. You had to go underneath everything to get to where you needed to work. It took you like 20 minutes to get in between all the deck panels. So the right angle drill worked really well and I quickly had all those cam covers off. The next thing was to get the pulley bolt out of the crankshaft pulley so I could pull the crankshaft pulley slightly forward to remove the belt around it. The only problem is there was a bit of a bracket in the way that had to be removed first. Right, I got the mask on because I've got a concrete floor. Now every time I crawl in here, I create a cloud of dust and it all goes in and then makes me feel manky. So, plus also I'm just about to cut this bracket here. I don't know what this bracket does. Well, I've got a drill as a pillow. So I don't know what this bracket does, but it's in the way. It only seems to support this little tube here and maybe the back pan of the seat here. So my plan is I'm going to cut it here, cut it here. Of course, this is a horrible job to do in this location. So I've covered up the engine as best I can. Sometimes I look at myself doing these things and I wonder if I'm one day going to be the recipient of the Darwin Award. I mean, honestly, what on earth am I doing here? Mind you, there's no fuel tank in there, so no risk of explosion. Trouble is, you've got to be careful of a grinder. You do it in the wrong area and it'll snatch and catch you. And here, if it catches me, I'm in trouble. Get out of it. Bloody fly. It was actually a wasp. Now imagine if that blimmin' thing had stung me when I was underneath there. God. There we go. So it's only 3mm thick steel, and the truth is it's only welded on one side of this beam, and that is not particularly strong at the best of times. So I don't think this is critical, and I don't think it matters. Obviously I'm going to weld it back in, but with that out the way, I can now get my impact wrench on that pulley bolt. Yay! At last! And it went so easy. I reckon, mother. So I bought this impact wrench. This is 1,000 Newton meters of braking torque on this thing. Right? It's 1,000 Newton meters of braking torque. I bought one that had 650 and it wouldn't touch it. But the problem is I was using there you go. The problem was I was using an adapter to take it from 1/2 inch to 3/8 and this long extension bar and this non-impact socket. So you had a number of places where it could twist and where it could lose strength, you know, lose torque through the assembly. So I reckon I was losing so much torque through this thing, that's why I couldn't get the bolt undone. Of 650 Newton meters or 1,000, even 1,000 Newton meters. I saw a video on YouTube where a guy was testing extensions like this, well actually 1/2 inch ones, not 3/8 ones, and he was losing like almost 50%, depending on how he was doing it, 50% of the power of the impact wrench through having bits like this that could just had a little bit of play in it, enough to take out the impacts and just reduce the amount of torque. So I reckon that's what you got to remember with these impact wrenches, and perhaps everyone knows that and I'm just an idiot and I didn't realize it. But yeah, learn a new thing every day. So that's my crankshaft pulley undone. Now, oh my god, did you hear that? Oh, blimmin' excellent. It's just come straight back. Oh, that is excellent. Because there was two things really stressing me 2 days ago when I ran into all these problems. One was, how do I get that bolt undone? Because I don't have the space to put a big bar down here. So it's impact wrench, or what else do you do? But the second problem I was worried about was what to do with this pulley once I've undone it. You know, because I figured I would probably need a puller. And maybe I've got some pullers, but maybe I'd have had to have made a puller to pull this back with. And I was like, I don't really want to go through all that hassle. But no, it's just literally pulled straight off. Now, before I can remove that cam belt, I have to lock the engine to TDC. This means that the crankshaft has to be locked in the exact place where it's going to be when the number one piston is at top dead center. In other words, when it's at the top of its stroke. This is really important because otherwise you could have the cams and the valves out of sync with the engine, and at that point when the pistons come up they could hit those valves and just completely destroy the internals of the engine. So timing is critical. The great thing about the F119 that's fitted to the Mondial is that they actually have this mark here on the crankshaft pulley, on that gear there. And if you get that lined up with the center of the pulley that's just above, and this isn't lined up obviously, then you know you're at TDC. In addition to that though, they've also marked up the camshaft pulleys, and you have to line those up with the cam covers. So basically, the flutes that are along the rocker covers on the engine should line up with little chiseled marks. They're not actually chiseled, but you know what I mean, little marks on the back of the camshaft sprockets. You line all those marks up and you know that your engine is actually properly timed up. Now, there are some people who say that these are just assembly marks and shouldn't be used for timing. I don't really understand that. What I do know is that a very experienced Ferrari mechanic said that they actually checked these marks against the standard methods of using dial indicators down the spark plug hole and stuff, and found that these marks were actually accurate. Another thing to remember is this engine's only done 3,000 miles and it doesn't need the valve clearances doing. And in all honesty, that belt hasn't stretched. Now, when you do up the bolt on the tensioner pulley there, you actually lock down that spring. So in other words, once you've done up that bolt and set the tension on the belt, that spring does nothing and it just stays at whatever it's been set at 32 years ago to the present day. And there is no sort of slackness in that belt whatsoever. So I can pretty much rely on the present timing, and as long as I put things back as I found them, everything will be fine. Right, I'm here running out of phone storage space again. But anyhow, so here we are. I've clamped up my cams. I wedged a peg each side, tightened them up with the water pliers, put the clamps on. Apparently the 360 manual tells you to use mole grips like this, but I've got wood in between anyhow, so they're just held in place. They're just pinched up. I managed to get this undone by tying... If you undo the bolt here and try and pull it back, I found there wasn't enough space, you know, between the bolt and here to actually loosen this pulley off enough to get the belt out. So I've put a piece of rope round there, I run it down onto the frame here, and then I used my thing here as a lever to really pull it down, and then the belt came off quite easily. So now the belt is here, and now I can get it round the crankshaft pulley, something like this, and there you go, that's the belt out. I've marked up the belt, so I want to keep those marks, because obviously with those marks it's going to be a little bit better. So now I've got to get this thing off here and try and get this idler pulley off. I've got a set of pullers, but oh god, I'm gonna have to cut them all down and mess them around, and it's not gonna be fun, is it? None of these things are ever fun. So I ground down this bolt. I've taken away the thread so it slides in there nice and doesn't damage the threads that are actually in there, because apparently they're a bit, got to be careful with them. I ground down the bolt head so it fits in there okay. This is about an 8mm bolt, so it just slots in there. Oh, and I drilled a little dimple on the end as well, so my puller can click into that. So I will just get this assembled and show you. So here's the puller all fully assembled. There's the bolt in the middle there, and I've just got to tighten down on this, and hopefully that will push down on there, push down on that bolt there, and then pull on the outer edge and pull this idle pulley off. But I'm just gonna go on that, and hopefully this will just pull straight off now. Yeah, it's coming. Oh, that's brilliant. Because it's not a very nice place to work, you see. So, well, it's not a bad place. I mean, you know, now I've got a rag underneath my head, but I'm just nervous of something tripping me up. I really am. I've lost my easygoing approach at the moment to cars and maintenance, and not a good time to lose my easygoing approach. But there you go. There you go. Right, that's come out. And there's the idle pulley, and that's why it sits on this little spigot thing here. So 33 years later, it's off. I've done 3,000 miles on that. But, oh, look at that! I've got to be careful. They've gone and shoved a washer there, which I didn't know about. I better make sure I forget that. What I'll do is I'll stick it on there, and then I won't forget it. All my parts have now arrived. So I've got the cam belt here, which is a Dayco cam belt, which looks quite cool. I've got the old cam belt here off as well, just for comparison, just checking. Obviously the old one's all marked up as Dayco and got Ferrari badges on it. The new one's just got Dayco written on it, but we're not going to be fussy. Can't see it anyway. The important thing is it's the same type, Dayco brand. We're okay. I got some washers because they were pretty cheap. I got O-rings for the fuel tank because I had to take the little evaporation pipes off, so I've got some new O-rings to replace them. They were pretty cheap. And then I got these, which were horrendously expensive, and you could sort of suggest that perhaps I did not need to replace all the idler pulleys and everything because the car's only done 3,000 miles, but I thought, no, I'm going to go for these uprated Hill Engineering ones because everyone seems to say they're good. So I thought I'll just get those. It's the cam belt, you know, you don't really want to mess around, do you? The other thing I also got, by the way, was a new spring for this as well. The spring is only used when you're actually installing the cam belt. So you undo the bolt so it's under spring pressure, it tensions the belt, you turn over the engine a few times, and then you do up the belt, and then technically the spring's just sat there doing nothing at that point. But ultimately the whole cam belt set, you know, including my other rider, pulley, cam belt, everything, you know, was about, delivered was about 350 quid, I think it was. And you know, it's a lot of money, but then again, a cam belt kit for the Volvo is like 150 or something. I don't know. I've got to buy one and do one of those soon. I'm not looking forward to doing the Volvo. I'm really not, actually. You know, because at least you can see everything on this one, whereas the Volvo, you've got to guess where you are. So I'm just trying to cable tie this in against the spring. So the spring's inside here and goes into here. The problem is this is easy to flip off of here, and this is under a lot of tension. So it's like a little, it's like some kind of little gun type thing. Just trying to pull off there, look. Already. Oh, and for those faint of heart, I will just cut out all my swearing at this moment. Oh, I hate this damn thing. Always. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, this is going to be quite difficult. Yeah, this is being a bit of a pain in the butt. Anyhow, so what I've done is there's a hole in the bottom. So I've just stuck a little screw in there, and then that hopefully stop this from falling out. Right, now there's two of us down here trying to fix this blimmin' car. So the cam belt's now in and almost sorted, I believe. Right, so the new cam belt's all in place like this, and basically it's all locked off with the various clamps. This clamp is just holding the cam belt onto the pulley, and that's actually done now, so I think I can take this off. That was just so that the cam belt didn't keep on flipping off while I was trying to put it on. And likewise, I've got one here which I can now get rid of. That's great. The tensioner's in place, and that's all relatively bolted up. I've left it loose because the spring is now pushing into the cam belt and holding on tension. My white marks that I transferred over to this cam belt can be seen here, lining up with that one. That's dead in the center of the water pump pulley, and then this one's lined up here, and somewhere down here, I can't quite see, there's two lined up on each side of the crankshaft pulley. So this should all be good. I know these are all still set to where they should be at TDC. I know this is where it should be at TDC because the little mark is in line with that, or virtually in line with that, so I'm happy with that. So I guess it's now time to actually remove all my locking and turn her over a couple of times. Right, I got to the point of trying to do the tension on these belts, and I hate this job. Now, some people say with this car that if you undo this bolt here, turn it a couple of times, bring it back up to TDC, then do this bolt up, all's good. And that might be the case, but I undid this bolt, turned it, and it was horrendously loose where it was pulling around all the things, and I got a little bit worried. So I'm not too eager to just leave it on the spring and do two turns. So I thought this was a little bit too loose. So what I've done is I've just tightened up a little bit. Now, one of the methods you can use is the frequency. And you can hear the frequency there. And I happen to know that's 139 Hertz. This is about 170. This is about 150, I think. Now, the truth is I do have really good pitch because I've played the tuba for years. And no, I don't know the frequency from that. I downloaded the Gates app to use the iPhone as a frequency tester because some people have corroborated, you know what I mean, have compared the tension meter that Ferrari say you should use with the frequency that you get when you flick the belt. So I've now got this to about 139 Hertz, which is a little bit looser than the 142 they say. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn it through 2 revolutions, so it's back at TDC, and I'm going to measure it again. It's not the easiest job by far, this, so we'll just see how it goes. Now, of course, if you're not lazy like me, then you would have taken the spark plugs out and it would be significantly easier to turn the engine over. But yeah, I'm just too blooming lazy. Okay, so I've turned it through 2 turns, and now this is the app. I've got the microphone right next to the cam belt wheel there. So when I go like this one's coming in at 158 Hertz like that. This one over here is coming in at 153 Hertz like that. So I'm now a little bit too tight, and I did push up on the wheel a little bit to try and get that. These ones are up at 170 or something, 172 Hertz. So depending on where you go on this, you get all types of musical instrument from it. Now, this is why I hate this sort of thing, okay? So I've now turned it over a few times. I thought I'd got it right. This is about top dead center. And I've got 137 Hertz, right? But I mean, this side, it's pretty much spot on where it should be. Within 3 Hertz, right? If I put, bearing in mind that the top dead center is just slightly before, I mean, that much on the crankshaft, just slightly out. If I give it just that ever little tweak, like that, right? Just that ever little tweak. Now I get 106 Hertz. But I mean, it's such a small tweak that I've done on there. In actual fact, my marks still kind of line up on the cams. I hate it. I know one thing. I've been messing around and plucking these this blooming belt so much that I've now got blisters on my fingers, man. Jeez. Maybe I should go and play a concert on the bloody top of a roof somewhere with my bloody stupid musical frickin' cam belt. Ugh, had enough. Okay, so in the end, I think I got it to around about 138 to 140 Hertz. It felt quite tight at that, not too tight. Basically, I pushed a little bit on the tensioner, just a little bit of pressure on the tensioner, and then I did that bolt up and let it be at that. And it seems to be good there. You know, it's not too tight and not too loose. It's like Goldilocks' blimmin' porridge or something, I don't know. Right, I've just popped this all back in place again. To get it round this piece up here, it's really, really tight. I should have uncable clamped all these wires. If these wires had been out the way, there would have been a lot more room to slide it. There's a piece over the back here that sort of extends out, and you have to get it up and over and out. I'm going to weld this back in here in a minute. I was going to bolt it in, but there's not much to bolt to. So I'm just going to weld it straight back in again, and then it's back to standard. I've got the TIG ready, so there you go. Okay, the final bit of job on the welder today is to just weld down here and then weld down here to get this bracket back in again. So it's not the easiest place to work here. There's not enough height here for me to actually roll over because my hips are too wide for this point. So I'm literally jammed. Like I literally cannot roll over. I mean, it's just not possible. So that should be running. Ah, flaming hell. I forgot to turn the gas on. Alright, it's a long old way because I'm right in the middle of the car now. Got to do the caterpillar. Right, back again. That was an unwelcome trip up there. That would not be funny, would it? Barbecue underneath my freaking car. Not the most tidiest welding in the world, but it's a nice strong decent bead all the way down there. So now I've just got to do this bit. So it's come to the day where I've got to fit the fuel tank back in. So the fuel tank's just up there. I've got to open the door, slot it on the floor, and then feed it in here, almost like some sort of weird large cartridge, and then lift it up into this space here. So all the pipes here are all now fitted. It's probably not focusing because it's too close in and my nose is right by the camera. Yes, all these are all now fitted and they're all cable clamped up and all that sort of stuff. Alternator belts on. I may have done it a little bit too loose. I think I set it to 90 Hertz. I don't know. I don't want too much tension on there. I'll see. I mean, I'll soon know if it's... to tighten or loosen it, you only have to go here, undo the bolt on the pulley there, that's up there somewhere, and then this, you know, you just tension it on here and then do that up again. So it's fairly easy to adjustment. She's all on the ground. Well, obviously you have to put on ramps again to do that, but I only need rear ramps. So yeah, all the covers are on, everything's ready. I've repainted that little bit there and that little bit there. These all stayed on, the ones on the tank come off, so I've used Sikaflex to glue the foam padding back onto the tank. There we go. And the boys out there somewhere just cleaning bits and pieces for me for the fuel tank supports. So, better get this done. It was really great to be at this point and finally get this tank in. I didn't mention actually that when I took the tank out, I actually drained all the fuel out of it, obviously, which was a little bit of a task. But if you just open up the fuel pump housings, you can just get all the fuel out there. So it's actually quite a light tank once you got all that fuel out. It's aluminium. Another big lesson that I should have learned, and I learned only afterwards when I had to do a different job on the car, was that I would have made my life substantially easier if I'd have removed the rear wheels before I stuck her in the garage and taken the inner wheel arch liners out. They come out really quickly. They're only a few screws and they just come straight out. And they give you so much better access to all of those fuel tank connections like the filler pipe and those little vent hoses. I could have then put the wheels back on to get her on the ramps and still had better sort of accessibility. So yes, the thing about the Mondial T and 348s is they were designed to have the engine taken out. And there was lots of little things like wheel arch access panels that just made life so much easier. And you can use that even if you're not taking the engine out. Okay, my time is coming to an end under here. I hope. I really hope. I don't want to jinx it. So my nice new shot blasted fuel tank supports and painted fuel tank supports are now up. I've got to torque them up still, but I think fuel pipes all connected up and tightened up. Spanner about this high and just until I'm happy. Got a cable tie all the wires up. I could really do with finding the tray that goes on here. £1,700. Yeah, right. I'm going to pay £1,700 for basically a piece of plastic that just goes here. No, I'll have to find a better option. See if I can find one hanging around. I believe the cam belt is now all finished. So the fuel tank's all in place. I've cable tied up the various bits and pieces. I've run her up very quickly and she seemed to start okay. I didn't want to jinx it by recording at that time. Anyway, so she all seems good. I've checked for leaks. I've checked all the cooling system for leaks, the fuel system for leaks. And now it's time to get her off the jacks. One point to note here is we've got nice new number plates with Maranello, the concessionaire is written on the bottom there. Yep, it actually worked out to be more logical and cheaper to actually order the number plates direct from the Ferrari dealers, concessionaires in London, where she was originally sold from. And it means I've got something logical on the bottom of the number plate rather than something like P&M Auto Parts or something like that. So even came with the caps, which is great. Look really nice now. So now it was just time to get her all off the jacks and get her all ready. Basically, I was now in the position where I could at last take her to MOT again. And yeah, I'm happy to report that she flew through the MOT. Oh, do I tell him that now? Oh, bugger. Perhaps I should leave that to the next video. When's the next video going to be? Oh, I don't know. And then it was all empty. God, I've got to clean up in here really, I really have to. Oh, the amount of time I spent on that floor just down there on my back, sweating away, getting bits in my eyes. Oh.